just talking to a fan here in Albuquerque, and I realized I was hired 20 years ago, July. So yes, and so I got my first gig really 2 decades ago.
Yay, well, happy anniversary.
Thank you. So thanks for sharing it with me, everybody.
Yay, party! Do a little jig.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's my basic introduction. As I said, I've been writing and drawing comics for 20 years. I've also had the good fortune to work in other artistic mediums and other entertainment mediums. I've done work in TV and film. I've worked for museums doing exhibition design, mural design, TV storyboarding, and I also teach at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. So it's been a good ride, I'd like to say. I always find in these sorts of forums that rather than talking at you, I like to sort of engage people with questions. It begins a dialogue and it includes people. And so if you have any questions, since you're here so early in the morning, please ask them. If not, I will ramble on about anything. Okay.
Do you think you're ever going to get to finish Otherworld?
In a perfect world, Otherworld will be finished in another medium. For those who don't know, Otherworld was a creator-owned book that I did for DC Comics Vertigo about 5 years ago, always with the intent of having it transformed into another media. For various reasons, I was unable to finish it. Only the first act came out, and it's highly unlikely I will be able to finish it as a comic book. However, a couple of production companies have looked into it, and one of them right now has been going through the paces of trying to turn it into a film or a TV show. And so my fingers are crossed on that. I just actually had a meeting in Los Angeles about that 2 weeks ago. So my guess is that it will be, if it is finished, it will be adapted in another medium.
Adopted.
Anything else?
Oh, come on, work down
Yeah,
that.
thanks for coming.
No. What made you even decide to get into this in the first place? Like, when you were a kid, I'm assuming you were probably a kid when you realized this is what you wanted to do?
Actually, no.
No?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist or a zoologist. And there's some very interesting observation was made by Diane Nelson, the president of DC Comics, when I was telling her my story about why and what appealed to me about that. When I was very young, while I enjoyed superheroes on TV, Super Friends and Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk, I didn't read a lot of comic books. Although I did love all sorts of fiction and mythology. I was a latchkey kid, I was by myself a lot, so I found that sort of escapism. I want a music cue for everything today. Like I want for the highs and the lows, and anyway. So when I was younger, I really wanted to design zoo spaces. I was born and raised in Southern California, so I was at San Diego Zoo and the Wild Animal Park a lot. I was really into animals, dinosaurs. And I loved museums. From the time I was a little kid, I loved the sort of dusty old cases of old museums that had all these weird antiquities in them. Going back to Diane Nelson, one of the things she said when I told her that what I really loved doing and wanted to do was museum design and exhibition design, she said, what appeals to you about that is that the stories being told in the cases. That while people would walk by to see sort of a dusty relic, you would create a story about it. I would create a story about it in my head. And she was absolutely right. And so one of the things that appeals to me, has always appealed to me, since I was a little kid, is storytelling. I got into comics much later, relatively, as a teenager. And some friends of mine in high school could see that I could draw, and they asked me to copy some images from X-Men comics. And I did, and I found out I was pretty good at it. But more importantly, I was actually good at telling the stories in pictures. What a lot of people don't know about our business is that the real skill is not simply in drawing Superman or Wolverine, but it's actually telling the stories panel to panel to panel in a way that makes sense to people. And for some reason, I had a knack for that, and I liked it. I think because it's problem solving. It's a bit like a puzzle.
It's almost editing on the page.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And because you have excuse me, any sort of medium like that, you have a finite amount of space. We had 22 pages. So we had 22 pages with, say, 5 or 6 panels on each page to tell a whole story. How do you do that efficiently, economically, and still make it really exciting? And so that's actually what intrigued me the most about comics. Being also, to finish your question, it's a long way around the question. I realized that I was good at it in high school. I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so I also knew that I wanted to move away from where I was raised, and I wanted to move to New York City. And so it's kind of a perfect storm of events that would be there. Yes.
Your destiny.
To my destiny, as it were. Yes.
It's kind of continuation of our conversation from yesterday. I went to my local store last night. They actually had the first few trades for Perez Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
It's not appropriate for 10-year-olds.
The second, because...
Well, the first one was, there was...
The first one
when they're in Olympus, there's too much like naked gods women running around.
Okay, she's
That's-
from the
Well, they
Avatar,
did
are you
that,
talking about?
it was suggest. I mean, they were like, there's one like the woman's in bed and she has a sheet over to cover her front, but it's too suggestive, I think.
The one with Ares.
And like,
The woman that's with Ares.
yeah, I think so. Or Hercules, I think.
No, that's Hippolyta.
No, I know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't really think that was, so I was kind of stumped again on kind of where I should go for the 10-year-old girls in my class. And so I was just kind of curious. I'm kind of wondering, is it just because there's so many male creators that this is an issue for me? And it kind of connects to that kind of the drama that was in San Diego that I read about, like that girl that was jumping up everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it might be connected to that, but I'm not really sure.
So essentially you're asking where's the material for girls, particularly young girls.
That isn't like silly, like Tiny Titans. Correct?
Well, see, I actually think Tiny Titans is one of the best comics we put out for any age, so I would totally give that to girls. I actually don't think silly or goofy is bad. What you're talking about, I think, is epic in its importance and the way it permeates entertainment culture. Comic books primarily, and particularly for the past 15 years, have primarily been a boys' market. They're dominated by themes that are easy to sell to boys. 95% of comics are made by boys/men. Yes, I meant that. Right, boy men. And they deal with most issues on a cursory level that will appeal to men. Anyone that does any sort of gender study knows that, particularly in the United States, most, for a variety of reasons, which I actually link entirely to misogyny and sort of gender issues, in the way men feel about women and all sorts of stuff, entertainment is generally geared towards boys because, for two reasons. Girls are trained at a very young age to read material that is both for boys and for girls. Boys are trained at a very young age to only read material for boys. Because if they read material that's for girls, that makes them girly or gay, and that's bad. Girls, on the other hand, are taught that that you can be an adventurer, you can be a princess, you can be a lot of different things. And this is relatively new, I'd say, probably the past 50 years, but they're allowed to go back and forth. Boys are not. So if you create material that is only for girls or girl specific, like Wonder Woman or Supergirl, most boys aren't going to care, most boys aren't going to read it, but more importantly, their parents aren't going to buy it for them, which is the second thing. Particularly in film and TV, why do we have so many action-adventure films, kind of bad movies with guys like with guns and cars, is because boys of a certain age, I believe it's something like 15 to 24, are, as I understand it statistically, the easiest to motivate by advertising. They're the ones that are going to leave their house, they're the ones that are going to take their dates to movies, they're the ones that are going to pay for stuff. So an entire industry is based basically around this notion that boys don't want to be at home,